Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today in episode 149, I'm very happy to introduce you to my returning guest, Eric Wood, and my first-time guest, Eric's brother, Robert, affectionately known as Dr. Wu. Eric is well known as the creator of the popular YouTube channel called Paranormal Highway. Eric Wood is on the Paranormal Highway, and he explores the mysteries of the unknown. Travel down this path with Eric to uncover evidence about Bigfoot, UFOs, and other paranormal phenomena, and learn more about the Mandela effect. Join him on his journey to unlock truths and seek knowledge. To learn more about his amazing journey, please subscribe to his channel and become part of these amazing experiences into the mysterious world of the Paranormal Highway. As you learned in episode 130 of the Quantum Guide Show, Eric and his family met Bigfoot in 1984, and then in 2007, Eric and Robert traveled back in time to witness a medical unit within Gettysburg. At first, they thought this was a reenactment, but later they found out that they had actually witnessed the historical event, and to this day, they can't explain it at all. Eric Wood was a member of the United States Coast Guard and later graduated from the University of Phoenix with a degree in business and information technology. Eric's brother, Robert Wood, is known as Dr. Wu, and he is an ex-Navy soldier who served on the USS Blue Ridge ship. He is an archaeologist who graduated from the University of Washington and has worked in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Dr. Wu has also worked at the Boeing Museum of Flight in Seattle. Today, we're going to explore the secrets, myths, and legends surrounding the Smithsonian Museum and find out what has really happened to all of those giant skeletons that have been found. Welcome, Eric and Robert. How you guys doing today?
Very good. Very good. Thank you for bringing me on. This is awesome. Just found out yesterday. So I'm like, cool.
I'm so
Hold
glad
on. I told him about it before, but he has a short memory.
That's all good.
I have a short. Yeah. Well, he sent me an email, but I don't read Eric's emails. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't.
Yeah. It's all good.
I don't read anything.
I'm so glad you made it today. So I'm really curious. I got to tell you one thing that I watch a lot of YouTube videos, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I like all kinds of different kinds of weird information. Anything that's outside of the box, I watch it. And there's a lot of shows about, finding the skeletons of giants, especially in North America. And every single show on YouTube that has a show about the giants, they all say the same thing. They say the Smithsonian comes and takes the bones and then hides them or destroys them. Just yesterday, I saw a podcast where they said over 9,000 giant bones have been destroyed by the Smithsonian. And so I don't know if there is evidence of giants or not. There's some old pictures of people digging up bones. But what do you have to say, Dr. Wu, about this? And, does the Smithsonian destroy evidence that might lead to an alternative perspective on history?
No, actually they don't. They use it. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this. Now, Smithsonian isn't what people think it is. It's multiple different buildings, and they're all over the place. So it's not just in one central area. There's a big bulk of them in DC. Also, the Smithsonian has undergrounds. I worked in the underground. In fact, in order for you to work down there, you have to have firefighting experience. That's not a joke. You have to have firefighting experience, and you get a firefighting equipment, and you get all this wonderful stuff because down in the crypts, you might want to call them, you got a lot of. I worked at the vertebrate department, and you got a lot of species that you're keeping in alcohol for preservation, right? So you're keeping them in the large jugs. And I had to mix the alcohol to the water content. You have a little bobber that floats and lets you know how much alcohol. So there are large things in there in large jars of alcohol, and seen a lot of them. But when it comes to bones, in particular bones, you also have the doctor. You have a lot of doctors down in there who specifically go after bones, and they carve a little piece off here and there to test it, to check for the volume of oxygen to nitrogen to what they ate. It's got a whole lot of information in the bones. So a lot of the bones there, let's just say they look like Swiss cheese. They've got sections where they use the bones, specifically bones for testing, and this is where it gets controversial. And I got to be real careful when I say it like this. I got to be real careful, and there's nothing bad, but way I explain it to it, there's a section where they use the bones, whatever they use them for science. A lot of them were exhumed prisoners of war or exhumed prisoners in general. They were felons in the ground. And so when the Americans started to expand a little bit, and they wanted their shopping malls and all their wonderful things and apartments, whatever, they had to shut down a lot of them prisons, and they leveled them down, but they had to exhume all them graves. So the graves were pulled out. They belong to the state. They belong to the government because they are prisoners in there. They use those bones. Large portion of them are in fact indigenous, but I can't tell you from what tribe. But I could tell you from their skulls, they have the molars, and molars are an indicator of Asiatic descent, which a lot of indigenous peoples have that gene they carried over when they crossed the Beringia. So it's kind of, so anyway, I've worked with lots of different bones, and I've been in lots of different weird places. So yeah, I'll start off the context. Like in archaeology, it isn't the artifact that's important, it's the context around it. Like I joke about Indiana Jones when he goes in and gets that idol. It isn't the idol that's important, it's everything around him that's important, like how it has it's shooting the arrows, and how's that air compression, where's that air compression coming from, where's the chemistry to have these things move and have a balanced scale of having a boulder come down. That's the golden monkey, we would call it. So yeah, so I'm giving you the context of the bones that we talk about. And Smithsonian famously, yeah, they've got everything. And a lot of things, you see the tip of the iceberg, which is above ground and in the museums, and then what's below ground is in storage. And number one rule of Smithsonian is storage and preservation, and everything else is just for you to go in and take a look at. But I've been in a lot of those warehouses for preservation. I could even go into detail about that later, but I don't want to keep talking.
You mean there's no fire pit?
You got a context now.
There's no fire pit that they take all the bones and dead aliens and they burn them? No.
So that
No, they don't do that. But
that brings me to my
they
next.
do have a pit.
Okay, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Oh, you want to hear about the pit?
Yeah.
No, they got a pit. And it's really cool. It's called the bug room. And when you first walk up to it, they always say, hey, one of the secrets is you put a little bit of Clorox underneath your nose because it's gonna smell real bad in there. And I go, well, how bad can it smell? I've been around things that rotten meats. I know this. Oh my goodness, no, this is bad. So they have this thing called the bug room. It's a huge, like Eric described it, like a big. It looks like a swimming pool, but it's empty. Okay, it's a big square pit, and you have an old man sitting there, and he looks just like the old guy from Men in Black that sits at the front door. This is exactly, and he's just kind of, that's what he's doing, because inside the pit they've got well, for example, when I was there, they had a whale wash. Smithsonian sends their scientists, guys, hunters, whatever, to go get that carcass. And what they can't carve off the bones, they bring with flesh on and everything. Smelly as smell they can be. They wrap it up real good in pit, and yeah, pits. It starts with a B. Bugs. Bugs eat the flesh off the bones.
Yeah,
So
it's the
when
way
the
to do it.
so there will be nothing. Yeah, and there'll be nothing left but straight, bright white bones, and then they chemically treat those bones. And then they put those in preservation. So that's bug room is constantly filled with carcasses. And I always make a joke. I said, if the government actually wanted to get rid of somebody,
That would be the way to do it.
be pretty easy to do at the
Nobody would
Smithsonian.
know.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so there's your bug room story. So we'll just
that's
let
great.
you ask questions now. I got so many things.
I
And
wanted
Bob, who's allowed to go
Hmm.
down there in the first place? What kind of clearance do you need to be in the underground part of the Smithsonian?
Oh, you need security clearance. You got to have security clearance.
Like one of the
and you
highest
gotta,
ones or something, or is
high,
there like
yeah.
different levels?
Well, there's different levels. There's different levels of security. And so when you work for Smithsonian, you go into a room, you sit down with one of those FBI agents that specifically does nothing but researches your background. And you got to, they call family, friends, they call everybody. It's just a security clearance. Now, I already had a security clearance from the Blue Ridge, which was an intelligence ship, because I was already on Snoopy team. So I already had a security clearance. So it was pretty streamlined when I sat down and did it, because the guys just, I got it back in like 2-3 days. Yeah. And so once you get the security clearance, then you're allowed to go into the undergrounds. And then you're also authorized to go to any and every one of the museums, because those a lot of those tunnels are connected. You can go from A to B to C, or you can go on the outside, and they have free employee transportations by the buses, and they take you to all the different, because I had to go to multiple different museums for multiple different things. So yeah, there's that one. Yeah, security clearance like crazy. In fact, when I was going through the door, it's like going to the airport every day. I mean, it's that strict. You got ex-military guards with the metal detectors in the back, and you got to go through these guys, and they wand you coming in and coming out, because people come in, they want to steal things.
Yeah.
A lot of things are worth a lot of money in there. A lot of valuable artifacts you guys don't know about.
Yeah. So I want to get back to the bones. You've mentioned dinosaur bones and you've mentioned whale bones. And of course, if you can't say anything about it, just don't say anything about it. But I'm really curious to know, have you had any skeletal remains of giants from North America come into the Smithsonian? Does the Smithsonian come and take away those bones and take them down into the underground areas or whatever they do with them? Have you seen any? And also, what about extraterrestrial carcasses? I'm curious about that too. But let's start by talking about the giants.
Well, number one, you're correct. The Smithsonian is the go-getters for they're the dog catchers for the government. Their job is to go in there, they hire specifically scientists from all walks. Now, NASA has nothing on Smithsonian. NASA is a front. It's a fancy toy place for everyone to look at. Look over here. But anyway, Smithsonian does, in fact, go out and gather they're the people that do it. That's their job. I mean, it's just that simple. Again, who do you call to come pick up stray cats and dogs in the neighborhood? You call the pest control guy. When you have these kind of artifacts or these kind of remains found, you call the Smithsonian, and then they come get it. So I have seen bones. I have seen femurs that are really long. I've seen unusual size remains. Now, are they magical giants? I don't know. Are they genetically large? Well, yeah. I mean, that's just what their genetics are. They're big. And I always tell this story to give people context and how I explain things. So let's start with this. When the University of Washington, a lot of others, they did an experiment, and they got they got these the piranha from the Amazon. Now, piranha live in water that has very, very low oxygen. Okay, they're very low oxygen, so they're very small, and that's why they have to eat meat. They need all those things they can't get from the water. The water doesn't provide it because there's almost no oxygen. They're living in sludge. So that's why the orchid has to do what it does to get all the nutrients. It has to modify itself and whatever. So anyway, in order for you to understand how these bones are large, you got to think about the oxygen that these things were breathing. More oxygen makes larger creatures. So as the experiment goes, they added lots more oxygen to the water for the piranhas. Guess what the piranhas did? They got big. They got real big. And with a regular steady diet, over generations, they've lost the ability to want to eat meat. They don't have to. They're 5 times, 10 times, 100 times the size, big old fish, soft teeth, and basically almost domesticated because of all the oxygen levels that went up. So, having said that, for context, when you're talking about a much larger human, then that human must have breathed more oxygen to get that big. Dinosaurs had more oxygen. They were big. Mammoths had more oxygen. You know, as you see the generations, you see animals getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's because we have less and less oxygen in the air. So that's what the average size of a person is 5 something. Well, that depends on the environment that you live in and the oxygen levels you have. So this is what the typical, what do we have? 98% nitrogen now or something. So apparently wherever these were in a place that had high oxygen. It's that simple. It's just that simple. So I'm looking at different bones, different time periods, different volumes of oxygen in the air, different environments, different environmental factors that determine how they look, how big they are, their bone structure, which means much larger face muscles. When they talk about Bigfoot has what they call a Newcomb's crest, which is like the center, like a gorilla has, a center like streak. And what that is where the muscles attach. They attach from the head down and they work with the jaw, which means they have to eat things that are very hard to eat. Now we're domesticated, so we eat cooked food. So we have much smaller jawlines. We don't need a Newcomb's crest on our head because we don't need all them muscles. A lot of these bigger creatures had to chew harder, so they have bigger and different facial features depending on what their diet is. So yeah, I've seen things. And I can tell.
Let me ask you this. When dinosaurs ruled the world, like you said, they're giant. These things were giant. Then
they were.
Theory goes that a meteorite hit the Earth, and then of course the fire, whatever it created in the atmosphere, they all died away. Did that meteorite, when it hit the Earth, did it like shrink the oxygen in a way where animals don't get that huge no more?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, any meteor that crashes down and it burns up a lot of the oxygen. Yeah. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the piranha and you're removing the oxygen out of the piranha tank. And guess what they started to do? They got small again. And then they got the demand to start eating flesh again. And they reverted back to what they used to look like when you take away the oxygen. It's the same thing with the reptiles, because, everything was a reptile back there. Everything come out of the ground, everything come out of the water eventually. And then, if we don't believe in evolution, well, I have something bad to tell everybody. Let's take a brain and cut it into pieces and take a look what we have. You've got the lizard brain. Clearly you could take that brain out if you had it in your hand, like a model. I used to have one. You take that brain out, compare it to a lizard. Well, guess what? Same size, same everything. Put it back in. What's around it is called the neo-mammalian brain, which is in English the new mammal brain. It surrounds the lizard brain, which is attached to the spine. You take it out and you have your mammal. Put it back in, and now you've got the frontal lobe cortex, the third part, and now it's the new part, and this is the part that gives us the creativity that we normally would have. In fact, that's why in the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, they lobotomized him. They lobotomized this part right here, the creative center of his brain.
They did a lot of that.
Wasn't creative after that.
They did a lot of that before pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Like up until the 1980s, if you can believe it.
They sure did.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It just...
He sure did.
The things
humans
do to
important
other humans.
To say.
Oh my God.
Yeah, before you had the pharmaceuticals, they used to lobotomize people, and
Yeah.
then it would just take away their inhibition stuff and turn them into zombies. Basically, now they were living out. They still have working brains. They still got your limbic system in there, which is half mammal brain, half lizard brain, and you still have your lizard brain you can function with, which is what I see most people live in now. It's a fight
Yeah.
or flight brain. You know, most it's very, very. I have a memory of it being much smaller. It's the size of a freaking quarter, but now it's the size of a. It's huge. So when people ask me, do you believe in reptiles? I said, yeah, I'm looking at one. Lizard brain. So you come from there. I'm sorry, like, people don't understand even how a vertebrae was developed in the water. They said, well, how does a spine develop in the water? Do you want to hear that story?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll grab a cigarette for this one. Okay, so when you had at one time you had your amino acids that got together and had themselves a little bit of a party and made us slimy and has no direction, has no nothing, has no consciousness, has pretty much of anything, however alive. Uh, when when these originals at the bottom of the ocean, they're laying on a thing called, anyway, it's high iron. My brain, because I have a little bit of a cold today. They're laying on the bed of the bottom of the ocean, which is a black type of rock, and it's high iron. And there are dust particles of iron that are all over. So the lower the whatever these little things are, the more they're interacting with the dust particles that are high iron. Over time, these irons become magnetic. And anything magnetic, like you take a bunch of magnets and they attach themselves, they can make a straight line. They're just particles that have become magnetized within the electrical little cell that has electricity in it. So that's what God gave the gift to whatever cell was. It has a little bit of electricity. Or if you're a naturalist, whatever you want to say it is, that little electrical cell takes all them little pieces of iron and basalt. This is my brain. There we go. It's basalt. So they takes the little fine, minute particles of basalt, and they all attach together, which forms the perfect spine. And so now you have a cell that is magnetic, and anything magnetic will always adjust itself to the direction of magnetic north. So now you have all of these wonderful little potential evolutional creatures that are all pointing the direction of north because of the basalt in their spine. Their body forms around it like a calcite, and it forms what we call today the modern day spine, and they all point north. And because of that spine, like birds will go north. Birds know north. Animals know north. Most creatures will know north. Humans, I've always known north. For some reason, I could never figure it out as a child. I always knew what direction north was. I could spin me in a circle, give me a couple seconds to straighten out, and I could probably find north instinctively, but it's not instinctive. It's from all the metal in my body. Now, I'm Rh negative, so I'm high copper. So I have high copper in my blood. High copper gives me a lot more electrical stuff. So I get electrical feeling all the time because whatever's in the atmosphere, I get more than the Rh positive, which is high iron. High iron is also electrical, and they do get the same thing, but not to the volume of a copper person. So I'm just kind of throwing that in. It's not an elitist thing to say. It's just science. But so that's where early creatures kind of started from the bottom of the basalt beds, and the spine that was formed is from the basalt, which became magnetic, and then everything started to point to the direction of north and south, and that's where the migration pattern started. And this is where this is where these proto whatevers came to land. I mean, they follow north. They don't care if there's land in their way. They're going to eventually adapt to the ground and outside of the water, and they're going to learn to adapt to the air in the air, and then learn to become bigger and bigger with the high oxygen content in the air. Also, in the water at those times, it was high oxygen in the water, very high, not like here, not now. High oxygen, which means much, much, much larger growing. Just the same concept as I talked about with the piranha. So these little cells like piranha with all the high oxygen and a spine now, and they can point north and they have a direction to move because they have a consciousness. They got a direction to walk. They've got a reason to live.
Yeah. And so that's how
because they go north.
That's how things got started.
Yes.
So but I want to take you back to unless you have more to say, which I'm happy to hear. I want to take you back to the whole concept of giants and the Smithsonian. So
Sure.
probably it sounds like there are bones that were taken there that were from different archaeology sites or findings where they found the bones of
everywhere.
giants. So does the Smithsonian Museum have a big display showing giants, that they were a real thing, and where they were excavated from, or are they hiding the fact that there was giants? Like which is it?
Well, what you get out of the Smithsonian is basically what you get out of NASA. You get about 10%. So the rest of the stuff is for storage and data collection. The majority of things are for data collection. So the giants are just data collection. You don't need to know about them. There's no reason to, because it would change everybody's perspective on, I mean, I don't know why they would care. All it shows is there was more oxygen. But see, I went to school for anthropology, archaeology, so I look at it as a scientist. I'm not one of them. Some people might freak out. They might have an emotional problem with the idea of a 12-foot human. They might not be able to handle that. Most people can't handle a lot of things. I mean, I'm not sitting here telling everybody that the government has the right to keep people in the dark, but let's just face it, man. Some people go nuts. They're on the edge anyway. So now you're going to bring out a 12-foot bones or an alien, and I mean, listen, it ain't going to happen that way. So, yeah. So there are a lot of things, and more than giants. There are large containers of creatures that I'm more fascinated with from the ocean. And believe me, there are some biggies in there, and there's some big jars. And they have all kinds of things. They also have so you have Washington, D.C. here. This is where all the Smithsonian stuff. And then you have Maryland. They have a place, and I'll even tell you the name of it. It's called Suitland, Maryland, where they have these large warehouses, just what you're talking about. This is going to answer your question. And to give you guys more context, you guys ever watch Indiana Jones? And when they bring the crate into the warehouse, that exists in Suitland. Yeah, that exists because I used to work the CO2 tent, and the CO2 tent is exactly what it sounds like. So you have a large tent, and I'm wearing a complete outfit with the mask and everything. You put the artifacts inside of the tent, you turn on the CO2, and it kills any and every living microbacteria, anything and everything. It kills all of it on there. They're 100% sterilized. Once that's going to take about 2 weeks. So once that 2 weeks is up, I turn off the CO2 tent. It has a vacuum. It sucks everything out. Now imagine a big white plastic tent with plastic. You can see through the thing. It's nothing complicated. Once it's all out, you have a little meter that says, okay, now there's no more CO2. You're safe. You open it up, you let it breathe, you come back after it breathes. It's got an inside fan that's still blowing stuff out. Then you take those, you put them on the cart that's sterile also, and you wheel it over to this big door. And then the special person that runs it hits a little code, beep, 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 which is completely temperature and humidified and everything and anything for preservation you can have, as money can buy, taxpayers can pay for. The doors open up, you wheel the artifacts in there, and then there are like a football field's worth of artifacts. Like my favorite, I'm gonna say it right now, my favorite collection, was in there was Roosevelt's trophies. Roosevelt had bears. He had a lot of bears, a lot of different animals. He had a whole trophy collection, and they take up one big, huge row. Imagine going to a shopping mall like Costco, whatever, and you have the wall, all them shelves. Well, all them, it's the same thing as like Costco. It's all filled with artifacts, everything. I mean, you name it, there are things from all over the place. I mean, in antiquity, they have it.
So,
And yes, there are bones in there, very large.
so
Go
what
ahead.
you're saying is, yes, it is true
Yeah.
that the Smithsonian goes out and collects anything that's unusual or weird or historical, and then
Yes.
treats them so that they're can be put away into long-term storage, puts them into
Yep.
long-term storage, and none of the mainstream population would ever even know about those things. And the reason is said because they didn't think we could handle it. But how are we going to handle stuff if it's always hidden from us? Like we're being treated like a bunch of babies. Maybe it's time we grew up and found out about some other things. Of course, that would disrupt the political system and certainly the religious systems and all the other forms of social control. I know I'm a bit of a radical thinker. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
But so you're saying, yeah, that's about the size of it.
Yeah, well, there's more than that too, because people destroy things. People just blatantly destroy things, and I'm more of a supporter for history and I preserve history. That's what I do. So to hand, it's like another example. We'll know the context. So you ever went spelunking in a cave and you see stalactites and stalagmites, and they say with a big old sign, please do not touch. Do not, your oils from your hands will stop it. You're destroying your environment just by, no one's doing anything wrong. I mean, they're not bad. They just want to touch the red glowing button. Everybody wants to touch the button. And if you put these artifacts out and you give people, oh, they exist, well, everybody and their mom's going to show up, and then the bad guy's going to show up and try to steal a piece of it. And hell, probably some people want to start a worship on it. They'll start worshiping it or something bad.
Yeah.
I'm not putting people down, but people are destructive. They're bad. And sometimes you just got to keep it from them. You got to keep it from the kids, because the kids will destroy certain things. It's like you don't give a baby a puppy. You show them a puppy, but you don't give
care
them
about history.
They'll hurt. Yeah. Well, they'll hurt, that baby will hurt the dog. I'm saying? That baby will play hard with the dog and hurt it. There are some things that have to be kept away from, not knowledge. Now, I'm an advocate about free knowledge. That's why I come out here and say everything. I don't mind. I have a education freaking security clearance, so I can say whatever I want because that's what I do. I'm not hiding anything because I don't have to. I can tell you about it, but you're never going to go see it unless they want to put them out. But I can tell you they're there because I saw them. I'm just telling you from a scientific point of view. Scientists are scared of people hurting and destroying because that's what we do historically. So you put something out that's significant and powerful, and everybody and their mom wants to show up. Another example, there was this artifact that was stolen from a church. I'm not going to say where or when and why. In this artifact, there were two lead cylinders, and inside of the lead cylinders was blood. Okay, supposedly. Okay, and the blood had supposedly come from Jesus himself. So they were in this thing, and of course, people know about it, right? They put it on advertisement. It's welcome to our church. Donate here. Here's the vials. Come look at the thingies. Please don't touch the screen. And know what happened? Somebody stole them.
Stole them, yeah.
They broke in within the church, took them out, and stole them. Now they couldn't sell them. Nobody would touch them with a 10-foot pole, and nobody would give them a penny for them. So what happened was they contacted, there's one guy that does all this stuff for artifacts. I mean, there's one guy that runs around and looks for the art thief. Basically, he's the art thief hunter. It's like one guy at Interpol, probably, maybe a staff of 3 people. So somebody contacted them at Interpol and says, we want to return these because whoever they were had a little bit of religion still in them. We're Christians. They said, oh my God, if this really is, we stole something we shouldn't be, they gave it back to the Interpol. But the feeling is people want to steal. They want to touch. They want to destroy. So history has to literally be hidden away sometimes from the people because people are destructive.
Mhm.
Not I have to like play devil's advocate between both sides.
Yeah, no, I
Hope that
totally,
answered your question, but yeah.
I totally hear you, but still, I think if everything was tucked away and under high security and safe, why can't they make videos of it or pictures of it or virtual reality of it so that people can at least have access to some of it. Now I want to give Eric, I want to give you a chance to say something. Do you have any questions for Dr. Wu, or do you have any observations, since you've got a show that has all kinds of paranormal weird stuff, and anything come up for you that you want to add to this conversation?
Honestly, this is the thing. Bob and I were, I moved to Maryland because I took a job up there, and my wife and the kids couldn't live up there at the time because they were down here in Washington because they were still going to school. So Bob came up there, free room and all that. And Bob comes back, he'll tell these stories, and you hear these stories, you don't think nothing much of it, but just like you, Karen, you start going to YouTube or Facebook, and people are talking about giants. And to me, like, why are they talking about giants so much? I mean, I guess because I heard it so much, not heard it so much, but you hear about it. It's not a huge deal. So in some ways, you would think that in theory that the best way to start training people is you do start talking about it, because the more you talk about something, more you get used to it, more it's not a shocker no more. But now, if they come out with it, it's going to be such a shocker. Whatever they come out, because like, oh my gosh, here they are giant. And I agree with Bob. People will try to break in even to underground. That would be problems, right? Now you got Bob. I don't know how many people got caught, but there's a lot of people that try to get a job within, get security clearance, and I'm sure, and turned out that the main reason why they're there was they were trying to sneak stuff out themselves. So Bob, in a way, and I know you can't say names, none of that, but during your time there, were there like inside workers got caught trying to take some of this stuff? Was that even risk on the inside?
Oh yeah. There's always a thief. There's always attempted thief. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to give Smithsonian 1000% credit. They've got security like crazy, man. You work in a space with cameras, you're being watched everywhere you go. It's just, think of a casino.
Yeah, people try to rip off casinos with high security. And people still try to rip off banks with
card cameras. Lady at the casino, the car, right? Yeah.
But Karen, what I always wonder, Karen, the story. Bob and I
he's really good there.
Bob and I have told the story plenty of times about the Gettysburg thing. But sometimes I always wonder, like, what kind of energy opened up a portal? And sometimes I wonder, Bob did work at the Smithsonian. He was in the underground. Was there something that Bob was playing with somehow that rubbed off? That
good
opened,
question.
you know what I mean? Like, because everybody have made claims they've seen ghosts out in Gettysburg. Everybody. So there's a good chance maybe just portals where these ghosts come in and out. And maybe it takes something special to open up some of these portals. And I'm just always wondering,
what you've been touching.
A powerful portal that we have. We didn't have no typical portal where you saw a nice little ghost floating along. We thought we were with real people. So I wonder if Bob, so I never really asked this question. I asked this question to
Bob. What you've been touching, man?
So Bob, prior to that day, that of course when you told me that we weren't in a reenactment, it was the real thing. Do you have anything, any remembers like during that work at the Smithsonian following up to that Gettysburg that you weren't playing with
all
before?
Of it. I play with everything.
But was it like
play with everything
new? You think that maybe, I don't know, rub off some energy so a portal can open with you?
Hi guys, break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called Orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When Orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show.
Well, number one, again, I'm not being a separatist, but I'm an RH negative. That means I'm high copper, which means I can handle certain things that people can't handle if you're RH positive, because you'll get cancer. For example, let's do an example. Eric and I, did we go to that? You wanted to go to the Devil's Hand, right? Where that UFO blew up. Remember that?
The Devil's Hand, yes.
Okay, so we went to the. Okay, so I stood in the Devil's Hand, and I had to take off my jacket, and I was steaming, like it was freezing cold. And you could see the steam coming off of me from that little area we're standing right there. You kept jumping in there, and I kept saying, don't get in there. Don't get out of there. Don't get in there. Don't play around with Eric's like, I can do it. It's just no afterwards, Eric.
And Karen, just to let you know, Karen, just 2 weeks ago, I put out a video that's called Dr. Wu and Mr. Wood investigating the story behind the Devil's Hand, because we were there, and Bob was talking about he was feeling the heat.
Oh God, yeah.
People have made claims that people got possessed or whatever at this Devil's Hand. So we just put out this video just 2 weeks ago. So I didn't really put the two together. Bob was feeling the heat, where people made claims that the devil himself comes out through a portal. That's where the area got its name, the Devil's Hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So actually, since you did feel heat at the Devil's Hand, do you remember at all feeling heat at Gettysburg by any chance? I never even asked you that. I never put the two together. You remember any heat?
Well, yeah,
morning. It was a Sunday morning. It was cold.
No, it was cold. Yeah, there was a lot of heat. I mean, there's always an initial heat. You got to go into the heat first. You go into the heat, and then it cools itself down a little bit. And then it kind of becomes a little more tolerable. But you were just hyped up. You were like running around like a kid in a freaking candy shop, man. Oh, look at this.
Because we were expecting it. It was like, wow, this is freaking awesome. And I was not freaking out. It was awesome because we were the only ones there.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that.
Like being in a store, no workers, nobody, and you're surrounded with any chocolate that you want. It was exciting.
Yeah. And the way Eric and I are traditionally dressed, because we're from Fresno, California, Kerman, California. So we both kind of wear the old fedoras and we look a little bit. we look a little bit local when it comes to certain things, so we kind of just slide it. We didn't look too weird. It ain't like Star Trek where they show up with a Star Trek uniform on, and everyone's like, "What are they wearing?" Now, you and I look a
living in
little local,
Fresno,
so
there's a lot of sun,
right
and even wearing hats, you still get skin cancer that I had to get removed. So
still get kids.
yeah, people was like, "Why do you wear those hats?" Well,
Yeah,
you live in
yeah.
over 100-degree weather all year round in Fresno.
Yeah. Now, I was wondering too, I think these portals open up at different, maybe different seasons or different times. I don't know, but it seems to be they open and sometimes they close. But certain kinds of people are more sensitive to it. There's been a lot of stories about what portals opening and closing and stuff on Skinwalker Ranch. Ryan Burns has been on the show before. We've talked about that. So do you guys think it is a natural phenomenon that it's kind of like a lock and key? If you have the right either blood type or energy or frequency and you walk into the right area at the right time, you end up connecting? Or do you think that you did something at the Smithsonian where you touched something or activated something that gave you a little bit superpower?
Wow. See, Karen, that's an awesome question because I'm curious what Bob's going to say on this because, my thing is if we had the answer to that, we'd be going to do portals all the time. Since the Gettysburg thing, I don't ever been into a portal just like that. So if that was something we have in our blood system, how come we can't continue that as much?
Well, it's a combo.
It's a combo. So I'm curious what Bob's going to say, what he thinks. Go for it, Bob. Tell me what's your theory?
Well, okay.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's a
combination of both. Okay, I like to use examples. No, it's a combination. There's a combination of mechanics involved, and there's a combination of blood types. Also, blood memory. You got to remember, doesn't matter what your blood type is. Your DNA stores information, and your information is in your DNA. In fact, now they have technology. I guess they have a horse that's running. They have a running horse. You can see the horse running, but it's stored on DNA. DNA stores information. So some people specifically have that information already in their DNA, like a key. So it's already there. Yeah. Again, I'm not separatist, but Rh negatives have that key more than the Rh positives, and they're copper. So they're a little more. You hear about them talk more than the people. Now, Rh positives can kind of jump around in it, like Eric was playing around with. However, they have a more of a chance to get cancer because their body can't handle that kind of radiation, that kind of thing. So Eric has cancer. He just and then people I know that talk about doing it, I was like, let me ask you a question. Do you have any cancer scares? They're like, how did you know that? I said, yeah, you shouldn't be playing around with that. That's like I tell people they're playing with Ouija boards. I said, don't play with Ouija boards. Why? So what's your blood type? Well, whatever. I said, are you no, you're playing around with the radiation you can't handle, and your body's will react bad to it, and you're gonna get sick. And 9 times out of 10, you always see these Rh positive female shaman ladies are always talking about doing magic and stuff. And I always ask them, is your family, you have breast cancer or anything in your family? Well, yeah, how would you know that? Well, I'm just gonna tell you right now, I wouldn't be playing around with that stuff. You don't have the body for it. You can't be playing with that stuff. It's not magic. It's not magic, it's radiation in the world of science. So portals are very radioactive. They're not good. That's why I kept telling Eric, get the hell out of that. Stop playing around with that hand. And Eric just got sick. He just got better. He's been throwing up, getting real sick. He had to go get his eyes looked at. He's getting shots. I go, dude, I told you not to play around in the freaking hand. He's getting a little better. I said, hang in there with that.
He's not kidding.
It's a little bit of a combination.
Yeah, we're happening.
And I told him, don't play around with that, man, because you can't be playing. Eric wanted to do a Ouija board. I said, no, you ain't doing no Ouija board there. We ain't bringing it. No, we're not bringing that a volume of radiation into the picture here, man. We're just going to leave it alone. Now, what you ask, I'm going to answer. Now, the devil's hand was not there. Okay, so it wasn't there. I've never heard of it. I lived in that town. I lived right up the street. Eric lives right up the street. I've taken the kids hiking and camping there and all over that area. That thing wasn't there, but it's there now. And it only existed after this weird UFO anomaly exploded over the water in the Puget Sound. And I was like, so that's where it was. So it's directly across. I go, this is where it was. So that's the mechanical version.
He's talking about the Mary Island incident.
So
Yeah.
the Mary Island incident, that thing blew up. And so now it created a hole. It's a whenever time these things come in and they blow up, they have holes. They leave holes. And the reason for that, try to make sense if this makes sense. Oh, get your cat. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm always attacked by, not attacked. I'm always surrounded by cats.
They're, because we started a little bit late, it's cutting into their dinner time. Now they're being pesky nuisance. So I'm so sorry about that. Please continue.
No, that's fine. Cats are
just want to let you know why I'm bobbing up and down and what's going on with me here.
So when you're talking about an object that doesn't exist here, it's never existed here, think of it as a timeline. Here's a timeline, okay? Here's a timeline, okay? This object has no history here. There was no metals from the ground in this reality who's made this ship exist. The people in the ship don't exist because they've never existed here. There's no history here. This is not their timeline. So when they come in and out, they're very transparent because they're not 100% here. They're not supposed to be here. And besides, nothing can go the speed of light if it has mass. It can't. That's why the CERN collider is 99.9% the speed of light. It can't go to speed of light because it has mass. If it has mass, then you have this thing called, it's in racing, that someone, what do they call that? When drafting. It's drafting. So if you have a particle that has weight, I don't care what the weight is. It could be the smallest, minutest weight on the planet. It could be as long as it has mass, which is a plus, and you shoot that BB across whatever distance, it's going to create a vacuum behind it, which is, they call it drafting or whatever. So all the dimensions are going to go right behind it because it has mass. He's not supposed to do that.
Right.
So when these interdimensionals come in and out, they have no mass. They can't have mass. Because if they have mass, then they're going to bring a vacuum behind them. So when they come in and come out, if they even have a slight bit of mass and they exploded, it's going to leave a hole. And so over the Puget Sound, there's still an active hole. They talk about Roswell, which just happened all of a sudden at the same time. It blew up. Well, guess what was in Roswell? Another damn hole. Mm-hmm. And then there are so many of these reports that we don't know about. They blew up all over the place at the same time, in Russia, in Europe, all over. You just don't know about them because nobody's done any shows on them. You wouldn't know. I didn't know about Mary Island. So there's these rift of holes. So that's the mechanical aspect of it. I mean, something intelligent put the holes there. So when you talk about, is it a natural phenomenon with the Earth? The Earth helps, but there's also an intelligence behind it who purposely planned these certain things. They that's the best way to invade. Open up the holes.
That makes a lot of sense and explains something to me. So I don't want to take the show away and make it all about me, but I just want to tell you something that happens to me. I have transdimensional experiences. And when I have transdimensional experiences, it's while I'm asleep. And I'm pretty sure I do it through consciousness. So I'm not taking mass with me. And I've had experiences with extraterrestrials, and they're not actually anywhere either. They're in a transdimensional space where, like a Venn diagram, where a bunch of different
nailed it.
Dimensions all overlap, and that's where I go. But I also have other weird experiences. Just a couple of days ago, I had a transdimension. The reason I know I'm not dreaming is dreams are completely different. Dreams don't make sense. There's no real beginning. There's no end. It's all over the place. I don't necessarily remember it. When it's transdimensional, I'm not only there, I'm fully conscious. So like I had one a couple of nights ago, and I was a guy. I don't know who I was because I didn't get that far with it before I woke up. But I was a guy, and I was wearing white pants, and I was in this white car, and I had keys, and I was on my way to my apartment. I had keys for my apartment. It was apartment 432. 436. And my girlfriend's apartment, I didn't get to see her in the experience, but she had one on the floor below me in the same apartment building. And I was that person, but I was fully conscious as me, Karen, going, holy shit, I'm driving a car. Where the hell did I get this car? I look at my pants. I go, I don't dress like that. Where those pants come from? Like, I was like a different person. So I know it makes no sense, but it does make sense because it happens always when I'm asleep. And it happens through a transfer of consciousness. So I think that's also what you're getting at. I'm the freakiest old lady I've ever met. I have all kinds of experiences. I swear to God, they're real. I don't care if people don't believe me, but I'll tell you, it makes my life super interesting. One day, I want to come on your show and tell you about some of this stuff.
Did you say 436?
Yeah, 436.
436 equals 13.
Yeah, and
that
also
was the number that was on my key. And
well, what's the number of this show?
That was the sweet number. What's the number of this show?
What's the number of this podcast?
149.
So 149? 13.
Interesting.
Anyway.
Interesting.
No, yeah.
So I agree with you. I agree with you.
I do that. Yeah, you're lucid dreaming, and when you have an energy, we all have it. I don't know what you want to call it. You call it a soul, you want to call it a whatever you want to call it, your chi. I don't know, but you have it, and it has no weight. So, like you've nailed it. That's why I believe you because you just said it. It has no weight.
So the only way for you to move about like that.
Yeah, it has no weight.
So you outside of time and space, and if I can do it, I'm sure it's happens to all kinds of other people. Like, I'm nobody special. I don't have any talent or anything.
What's your blood type, though?
I'm not sure. I know it's type O, but I'm not sure if it's Rh positive or negative. I don't know.
Women never answer that, and I'm always. But it's you don't have to. It's like asking a woman, like, how much do you weigh? You don't ask that question. That's a rude thing to ask.
Oh, we all lie about that anyway.
I'm just for data. I was just curious if you're an RH negative or not, because that means you're copper, which means you're like an antenna, which means you have a lot more lucid dreaming than most people.
I do. I don't know if I leak DMT or what, but I live in Canada and they don't give you, you don't have a right to any of your medical records. You don't have a right to your test results. You can't go in and find out what your blood type is. It's weird.
That sucks.
Yeah.
And sometimes I tell people don't even answer that because it's something you don't want people to know about. Don't answer.
I don't know, but I know I do a lot of interdimensional travel, and I'm a magnet for these things. But I don't have cancer, so
you don't have. So I might have answered my question. I think I've already got my answer, but yeah. So you've lucid dreamed. That has no mass. So I do the same thing. I'm in and out of this. I'm fully conscious. I'm literally laughing in my dream. I'm like, this is crazy. I had a lucid dream just a short time back. I was in a gray outfit. I was completely gray from head to toe. Like it was some kind of generic uniform. It's generic. And there was this, it's mostly concrete-y looking. And it was this big round thing, and it had doors that opened up, and then people were going in like an elevator. They were going in like an elevator, and I was escorting a kid. I have no idea, but I was escorting a little smart kid. And I told the kid, hold on for a second, because in the dream I recognized somebody from another dream that I had. It was also, and he was like, dude, I'm like, what's up, man? I'm having a conversation with this guy. Now he's lucid dreaming. He's from another dream. So he's conscious. He says, what are you doing? So I'm taking this little kid into the thingy, man. I don't know what you're doing. He goes, So I was like, I'll see you around. And I told the kid, let's go. We got inside there. The doors shut, and it did some kind of weird thing. We were all gone. And then I woke up, and I had to wake up with a laugh, because that was mostly because I saw somebody I saw before in another dream. I'm like, hey, dude, what's up?
That's actually happened to me before, too.
Yeah, I believe you. It's kind of funny because you'll run into people like, hey, what's up, man? That's when you know.
I had an experience on the big, what I call the big ship, which is a place I go and I meet with other extraterrestrials. They look just like us. They do not look like grays or anything. Anyway, and I was up there and I was walking down a corridor and I looked over into a room and there was Dave Emmons. And I don't know if you know who Dave Emmons is. He's had contact with extraterrestrials a couple of times, and or I should say maybe a few times. and he's quite outspoken about it. And I saw him there talking to some of the ETs. It just blew me away. It's the first time and the last time I ever saw anyone I knew. But when I'm in that state, I'm absolutely conscious. I'm lucid. I'm aware. Sometimes I'm me and I'm there having an experience, but other times I'm actually someone else. It's weird. It's like I'm sharing consciousness with someone else and they don't even know I'm there. It's weird, but it's cool. It's real cool.
Yeah, you're their dream. You're their dream.
Maybe, maybe. I don't know. I think truth is much stranger than fiction, which takes us back to the whole Smithsonian. So have you seen any evidence of actual physical extraterrestrial, what I would call extraterrestrials? They might be interdimensionals or they might even be from here, but have you seen any evidence of bones or anything about that?
Well, I'm going to answer this question the way, because you have the answer because you just nailed it. Now, number one, when I'm doing my thing with, like you're talking about, these guys don't have mass, and so they wouldn't be laying on no table. They're not here. They're trans whatever's. They're not going to be laying on a table. So I did see some things on a table, and I'll tell you what, they're not aliens. Well, they're created and they have mass, which means they're not the interdimensionals that you think of when you see, So they have mass. And mostly, to give them more of a context, they have this new invention now that's been going crazy. They have synthetic DNA. Yeah. And they are now doing synthetic DNA. When you look at these little things, they look like synthetic DNA, 100%. When you talk about things from other places, they don't have to be carbon. You understand? Carbon is just our signature. Yes. They don't have to be carbon.
They can be silicon based
or a rock.
Yeah.
Silicon, a rock. They could be anything. They can be, it's whatever that, they could look like a rock that's alive. You're like, that, how the heck did that even, how does it even eat? It secretes something from the air. It eats from the air, I guess.
Well, like crystals grow, and some of them are alive, especially the quartz. And what they do oxygen. Is they actually pull from what we would call the Planck level. So they pull energy from 0 point or Planck. You know what I'm talking about, right? Real small, way small, like to the exponent of like -33, smaller than an atom. And they pull energy from that, and they actually grow. They've got helical structure that actually pulls from 0 point, and they actually grow, and they don't eat and they don't talk and they don't have a beating heart, but kind of technically they could be considered alive too, right?
Did you just answered your question? You just answered the question. What did you see? You've just answered the things that I saw. It's they don't have to be, you've got the little guys or whatever's, but they don't have to be alien. They could be making. There's a lot of different things that they have at the Smithsonian that they consider this is life. And I'm like, okay, how? I'm fascinated with how it eats and how it defecates. How does it even? What does it do? How does it you talk about the crystals? And they've got these weird things, and I'm like, where did it come from? You've got a context. There's this thing, and it's called NOAA, and it's a computer program within the Smithsonian, and one of them, and it's called NOAA. And if you have security clearance, you can access NOAA, and NOAA is the record of everything. So I have an artifact, and a lot of the artifacts, this is where I come in. This is one of my jobs. A lot of the artifacts are very, 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 very old, and they were picked up in the field by an early field person. And they wrote it with ink. We're talking about ink at the time, so they have cat numbers, like anything in the library, like the Dewey Decimal System. Basically, the NOAA is like a Dewey Decimal System for anything in the artifacts. And at that time, they would write them on little tags, like little tags, and they would tie it on, the little piece would tie it, and you got to make sure that tag is there. And there's the cat number, and you take the cat number with the object you have. You go over to the computer, you check the NOAA, or you check whatever the system you're looking at. You find it in there, and then you add or subtract anything new about the artifact that you have. So say if it's natural erosion, it's more erosion. You give your definition of what it is at the time you're doing it, at the time, date, stamp it, everything. So you're constantly taking care of the artifact. There's always somebody rotating through, always going through the artifacts and making sure you're writing it in. So I got to see them like that. And yeah, there are living entities that are objects. They have mass now. Mass. Let's stress that, because you've already answered that question. They have mass, and because they have mass, that means they're here somewhere. That means they belong in this universe. You understand? That means they have a history. That means they came from somewhere around the area or somewhere at a distance or whatever. But however it is, they have mass. That means they're supposed to be here. That means they're, I wouldn't necessarily want to call them aliens since they belong to this universe. We would call them that because they're not from our neighborhood. But I wouldn't call them alien. I mean, we want to go the definition of they're locals. They're a local was a living thing.
Well,
I saw a lot of those.
There's so many things that we have not seen, like even all the undiscovered areas on the earth, in the oceans. There is so much that we have not, I think a lot of this weird stuff you see on UFO mania and stuff, where it shows all these things aren't UFOs at all. They might be natural things that we've just never really discovered, or maybe they've been discovered, but the mainstream has not been allowed to know about it. There's a lot of forbidden knowledge around archaeology and like the megalithic sites. Some of the oldest ones are the ones that are done with such precision. How the hell did they do that? And everything I think was different than what we're told it is. So I think there's a lot of mysteries and hidden information at the Smithsonian. It's very exciting actually to talk to you and find out what's myth, what's fact, where there's overlap even, right? It's a very fascinating subject. I'm hoping I can have you back on another show. We can continue this conversation because it's amazing. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about.
Well, you have the mindset for it now. See, the way because so now when you think about an alien, you're going to go back to your lucid dream and say, well, I've talked to them, they don't have mass. And I can see what he's talking about when you have these objects or these. Now you're going to think about it differently. You're going to be like, oh, the crystal. Wow, it makes sense now. They have a history here. They belong here. As in the other ones aren't supposed to be here in this timeline. Eric and I's favorite movie, Time Bandits. Just think of these time. They're like time bandits, man. They're like, nah.
I just rewatched that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's like time bandits, and you got to ask yourself, you can't be here. I have no history here. You can't open portals here. You can't play around with it. And if you want to call it a living universe or living matrix or God or whatever you have, it has its defenses too, just like the defenses against the dark arts. Or if you get a bug in your body, you've got white blood cells that attack that foreigner in your body, protecting it. So there's something here protecting it from this virus that just stepped into our timeline. Can't be here, not supposed to be here, and messing things up here. And there's a resistance against it. And the resistance is probably some people like you and myself, because we're lucid and we kind of get the information on the other side about what's going on with these guys. They're not supposed to be here. They're not supposed to be here. So they've crossed over. And because we are terrestrial, but we at the same time, we have an ability to leave our mask behind. We can go see these time bandits and say, "Sup, what are you doing in here? You can't be here. You have no history here. You can't change timelines." So we might be the Earth's resistance against it, because the Earth is alive too. It's the same thing as the crystal. The Earth has its own resistance. So we're like white blood cells, and we're fighting against these things that are not supposed to be here. Fort invaders, they were not supposed to go to Mary Isles and bust a hole into the bust a cap into the whatever. No, they were not supposed to do that. Same thing with Roswell. They weren't supposed to do that. And all over the back of this turtle. They weren't supposed to jump in here. Not supposed to be here. Now it goes back to your religious ideas
Yeah.
about the fallen angels and the demons are invading. Well, if you want to think of about that way, if that makes you more comfortable, then go ahead and use that. I'm going to use a little bit more of a science and say these time bandits are running around messing some things up at the moment. And it don't help with CERN is shooting mass at each other, because you have wake on both sides. You have two different, it's got a slinky behind them, and it's bringing dimensions together and smashing it. It doesn't matter if it's contained, it's in what area. It doesn't matter. You're still shooting mass. You can't shoot a particle with mass, because you're going to have a wake behind it. You're going to have drafting and a vacuum. So what we're having is a smash of, guys, what are you doing? Because they rip apart one particle, they go inside of it like a piñata. They go, there's multiple different particles within that particle. What do you want to do? Let's break another particle, grab a particle out of the particles, and let's smash that piñata. They smash it. What do you think? We have more particles. We got more names. Smash that one. Smash it.
We have more
it's
and
a
more
dragon's tail.
More and more weird stuff happening in the social reality as a result. I think also all the nukes. Oh my God, I was looking up how many nukes have been exploded, what the half-life is for them. I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe we're actually alive. Like, it's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Well, Fukushima had its massive thing, and we had that ocean. I remember when Fukushima happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you look at I was doing the NOAA thing. I was like, wait a minute, man, the oceans are being contaminated with radiation, and it's going to reach Washington. And it's going to pretty much kill it's a global killer. But all of a sudden, you have this phenomenon that happened called the Mandela effect, or I call it a discrepancy effect, or a continuity error effect. Yeah. I've noticed that Japan moved its spot. It moved. And I go, where's all the radiation from the Fukushima? It's not there. Where did it go? Well, why all of a sudden is that not an issue? But it was a massive issue at one time. Because somehow, you want to call it the God or the universe or the lampshade, it fixed the problem. And it continues to fix the problem with people like you and me and Eric and other people that are waking up and having this conversation. Yeah. Because, we're supposed to. We're the white blood cells.
I call us quantum mechanics. When your car's broken, you take it to an automotive mechanic. Well, we're the quantum mechanics. We're fixing the timelines. We're fixing reality. So that's what we are. We're different kind of mechanic, So listen, guys, our time is running. Our time is running short, but I want to turn the floor back over to each of you. Maybe we'll start with Eric. Eric, talk about anything you want to add to this conversation. Please feel free to, and then tell people where they can find you, what you're about. I think that'd be real great. And then Robert, you can tell us all the same too.
Bob's an interesting study. I'm serious. You could do a study on Dr. Wu, because you hear words, people are mediums and all that. I feel Bob's kind of a conduit. Yeah. Because if you just look at you bear with me on this. If you look at the history a little bit, right? We had a Bigfoot sighting. We're kids. Bob was there, of course, right? And then a story I just put out a month ago. A friend of ours who's in the military came out and swears to this day that he saw Bob and my father go up into a UFO and come down. So you start thinking about that. Some investigations that Bob and I have done. Like, I gone to a place called Black Diamond where I was there the day before Bob was there. Nothing. Nothing. No foot. I had a camera, but caught absolutely nothing. But once I get there the next day with Bob, there were some phenomenon, like voices, little bit voices of a radio that we had, and then we thought we saw a floating thing going across.
We did
an orb. So it's like when you watch the movie. What was that movie? Practical Magic. When if you bring the witches together, there's their power stronger, or the movie
eventually
you put them together. Yeah, there's crafts because if you do the study on us, there's times when I rip the muscle somehow, and Bob has soreness in the exact same spot when he was in the UK. This happened 3-4 times. In this, I'm not talking about. I mean, same spot. Hey, Bob,
It hurt.
Yeah, I hurt there too. I mean, why are we hurting the exact same spots when he's across the UK? So I mean, and then of course you got the Gettysburg thing. Like, I've been to Gettysburg by myself. Absolutely nothing. And once we go there together, something happens.
Yeah.
So and then of course we're at the Devil's Hand, where together Bob felt the heat and energy around the puddle. So it's like, is it like the craft where together somehow his conduit power energy is more stronger?
Oh yeah, I believe so.
But what I'm getting at is there's a lot of good study that goes on, not just on the unknown. Is the unknown with Dr. Wu himself? Is he the key? I tell people, if you go on a big time investigation, you might want to think about bringing Dr. Wu with you. Not for his great knowledge, but I think his energy will make things happen around.
Yeah, and I'll bring weed and beer. So
there you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
That helps too. So we do a lot of great studies like that. But anybody wants to go to my channel, there's a lot of different things on there on the Paranormal Highway. I mean, Bob usually comes on there on Fridays, and we'll just discuss. Usually Fridays open topic for any kind of a topic that just, if something happens during the week, whatever it is, could be Mandela effects, could be something in the UFO community, Bigfoot community, it doesn't really matter. I've been putting out like these 2-3 minute kind of a docu in a way of narrating stories that I get from investigations around the world. So it's a fun, cool channel. And, all you got to type in is Paranormal Highway. I mean, you're going to find it. And like I said, it's always fun when Bob comes on, because I always tell people, get some popcorn, get some coffee, get some soda, because you literally do not know what's coming out of him that day. You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All yours, Bob.
So true. So true.
Well, I have my own channel. My primary thing is to get rid of they say karma. I get rid of apples. I try to give and help and help and help. My goal is to get people off narcotics and get them off drugs and get them off those things that are killing them, get them away from the pharmaceutical companies, get them to the alternatives or whatever's, work with their doctors, try to do a new program. And I just tell wild stories on my stuff. Now, it's probably 30% truth, and about the rest of it's just me. And I always say it on my show. Nothing I say after this is true. Now listen to this. And I start going into stories and kind of just telling people about this and that and where I've seen and what I've been. And I always try to make people know, look, now this is just a tall tale. And I'll tell you the truth, but sometimes I like to have a little bit of sippy sips and have a little smoky smoke and tell a tall tale. But then other than that, some people ask me serious questions, and I'll give them a serious answer, because it's like feeding the kid with medicine. You sing the song, get the medicine go down, you do the choo-choo train with it, you give them a little information like the choo-choo train song, or the airplane is coming, open the anchor, the airplane's coming. And I give them a little bit of information at a time, because if you say too much, too fast, everyone's going to just think you're crazy. And that's pretty much what I have now. And I'm like, I've told too many people, too many things too fast. And now I'm a nut. So I have to, when in Rome, right? I'll just play the part of a Roman nut. So I'll just, but I give people information about it and stuff like that. And, I have to admit myself, I'm an anomaly, because 99.9%, all of these gifts that have are women have. Men are not supposed to have it. Women got it. Women get it because they have a womb, and they have basically a head start to the other dimension, because they have it in their body. They have a womb. Women have babies. Babies come from the ether, whatever's the vacuum of whatever's. Women have that. Men don't. Women have the instincts and all these things that whatever's, because they got to protect their children, they got to protect their husband, they got to protect everything. Kind of a matrilineal kind of a mindset. But women have these gifts, not men. Men don't. That's why when I hear men talk about, I'm like, I don't believe you. I'm sorry, I just don't believe you, because men don't have that kind of gift. However, for some weird reason, I got it. Now, Eric and I didn't have a mom growing up, so how the hell did I get it? I got some of the women's powers. I'm hanging out in England and I'm looking at a person that had died, and I'm like, "You're dead. What the heck are you doing standing in the middle of the road?" It's kind of weird. Um, so that's where I'm coming from. Again, I do the best I can, and coming from a guy, it's a little bit weirder because a woman. Eric and I didn't have also medical growing up. My dad didn't have it, so Eric and I went to the Bruja. The Bruja is a witch. I've always listened to the Bruja. They have all because they got a womb, so they got a little more of a connection to God than we do as men. Men don't have that connection to God. Women do. However, some reason I got a little bit more of it, like a woman. Now I'm not guarantee you that, but so yeah, I just kind of put myself into what they call that in a nutshell about what I have for abilities and all that fun stuff. And I had a good life. I got to go do a lot of wonderful things. I wanted an adventure, and I went out and had an adventure, and continue to have an adventure. And now everything's going crazy in 2024, and it's another new video game. So here we are again. And now I'm talking to you good peoples and everybody. So here we are. Let's have fun. It's the end of the world, right? I don't know. So that's it for me.
Yeah. Well, Eric, you're muted.
Yeah.
Eric, you're muted.
You're muted.
I'm sorry about that.
Muted.
All I'm saying is there is some weird energy that Bob has, because there's we should not be alive today, him and I got hit by a car when I was a kid, flew in the air, broke no bones, no nothing. And there's a lot of stories. Bob went off a cliff. I mean, it's almost like something is keeping us alive, and we don't know what that is, why it is. Because too many times that we could go into death stories, that how did we survive? So,
I say it's because we're quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
And we got a job to do. So damn it, let's do it.
It's getting done now.
That's right. And that's right. Let's get her done now. So I've really enjoyed both of you having you on the show. I hope we can do this again. There's so many things we could talk about, so many rabbit holes to go down. And I just really appreciate you both very much. I enjoy your shows. Actually, I've mostly watched Paranormal Highway. Just love it. Just love it.
Yeah.
I recommend
mine's a little bit different.
Yeah, to everybody. But yeah, and I want to thank the viewers and the listeners for joining us on the show today. I really appreciate you all very much too. And I guess that's about it for today. So we'll say bye-bye, and we'll see you next week on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.